Language Gengo. 1. Sound language. They say, I think, therefore I am. The act of thinking. When we think, with what and how do we do it? Let's think carefully. We do it with language, meaning we think with words. But is that really so? When we think, I'm thirsty, are we doing it with words? When we look at a sunset, look at the Mona Lisa, or listen to music, do we think with words? Primarily, we feel it by mobilizing all our senses. But isn't the process of interpreting it done through language? However, viewed that way, another thing cannot be explained. The thought, I'm thirsty, I need to drink water, is something prior to language. Jisheng expresses this as the wave of survival. A wave, is it a dimension of intentionality or instinct? When we see, hear, feel, and respond immediately, there is no room for thought to intervene. However, when we think deeply or complexly, we do it with language. Then, can't we say that thinking is done with language? Language Yan Yu. Language, Bhasa in Sanskrit. A sign system, such as voice or text, used by humans to express thoughts or emotions and communicate with each other. Language is accompanied by writing. Writing was created about 6,000 years ago. Then, was there no language before that? Did people 6,000 years ago live without communicating? Since they communicated, meaning language existed, shouldn't we view that writing was created on that very foundation? Unlike the concept of language that includes writing. Let's call this sound language. I believe the traces of this sound language are Mongolia's Khmer and Tibet's Sanskrit pronunciation. It is seen as a trace of sound language, where people communicated by varying overtones, overlapping sounds in pitch, tone, strength, weakness, length, and shortness of sound. The speaker communicates through waves, and the listener through resonance. Of course, gestures and the like are also likely included here. Furthermore, seeing how a single oracle bone character has multiple meanings, perhaps at the time of oracle bone script creation, the sound values for those multiple meanings were different, and this too might be a trace of sound language. Some say oracle bone script had 8 tones. Depending on the region, languages go up to 12 or 16 tones. What has most completely preserved and passed down? The archetype of the sound values of this sound language is our language, namely Korean. Therefore, the interpretation of oracle bone script is possible only through Korean. Can we not see these as traces of sound language? 2. Written language. In modern times, such sound language is not used. We generally use what is commonly called language. The name, according to my classification, is written language. As we began to record in writing, the transmission of knowledge became easier, and as the meanings expressed through writing differentiated and diversified, human cognitive power of thinking through language also developed, leading to an explosive development of civilization. As the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis suggests, humans think as much as the number of words they know. Our civilization achieved explosive development as the number of characters and words increased. However, this development had a fatal trap, the phenomenon of a narrowing cognitive range. When communicating through sound language, we accept things synesthetically, accepting all information as a whole. We simultaneously grasp objects and their states. That is, the cognitive range is broad, holistic, and comprehensive. This method of communication inevitably makes one think by putting the other person within one's own scope. That is, the concept of we community develops. It is the concept of a community being together within one fence. It is natural that the perspective of viewing nature and the sky is included here. The method of fixing and transmitting a certain meaning in written form is a 11 correspondence of one meaning per character. Unlike sound language, where waves flow, we accept only one fixed visual piece of information, making the information fragmented rather than holistic and comprehensive. I express this as writing narrowed human cognitive range. Jisheng calls this the cognitive paradox of the invention of writing. Due to this inherent characteristic of writing, human cognitive range becomes narrow. Unlike the holistic and comprehensive information delivery of sound language, written language delivers fragmented and fixed information. Written language has no conversation partner in front of one's eyes. There is only information. This characteristic gives birth to individualism, which, when intensified, becomes egoism. Following this, the concept of ownership, known as private property, deepens. In the era of sound language, the concept of occupancy would have been universal. In the era of written language, the concept of ownership and private property becomes universal. Leaders who previously guided people through the cycles of nature and celestial bodies gradually lost authority, and specific individuals or factions came to possess power, manifesting as the ownership of others to become rulers. Combined with the concept of owning territory, they divided land into my land and your land, drew boundaries, and created a social system of invasion, conquest, and domination. Now, that system continuously reproduces such ideologies and figures, sustaining a society rampant with private property, egoism, and individualism. The main concern of this society is not human happiness, success, wealth, fame, status, desire. Domination and ownership become the yardsticks of social value, and human happiness is pushed to the backseat, crowded out by these things. People cite various reasons for this modern social trend, saying it is human nature, the ills of capitalism, the cause of materialism, or corrupt ruling elites, but at its root, I think it might be because the basic framework by which we perceive the world narrows and fixes human cognitive range. In other words, because of these inherent properties of writing. This does not mean we should retrogress to a world without writing. If society as a whole becomes aware that writing has such inherent characteristics, solutions to it will naturally emerge. It means we should use writing, knowing that it has such characteristics. Medicine is a cure for certain parts, but a poison for others.